Good morning, everyone. All right. So, my name is Malia Gautier, and today I'm here to talk to you about how birth control pills should be sold over the counter. So, approximately 50% of all pregnancies in the United States are unplanned, and of these, 43% will end in abortion. So, according to the sugarreport.org, um, these documents states all of this. So I know a few friends and family members that have came across unexpected pregnancies at such a young age that led them to mental health problems and financial difficulties. So as a friend and family member of these people, I have gained insight in what could be done better in our society to help this cause, which led to extensive research. I have decided to talk to you all about how birth control pills can help the situations if sold over the counter. Today, I wanted to make sure you realize the benefits that women would obtain. I plan to address the rate of unexpected pregnancies, the benefits of over the counter birth control, and the hardships that over the counter birth control can help avoid. And then I will address what needs to be done. I would like to start off by reinitiating the rate of accidental pregnancies. So there are many accidental pregnancies that do happen, and about half of the pregnancies in the US are accidental, with inconsistent use or no use at all of the birth control pill being the leading cause. In 2008, a study showed that 51% of pregnancies in the US were unintended in women aged 15 to 44. So next I want to discuss how women can benefit from the over-the-counter birth control pills. So women would have the opportunity to be more inclined and stay on track with daily consumption and have easier access. So this will allow women to pick up pills as needed instead of waiting for appointments for a prescription. Because for some women, going to a healthcare provider to obtain a prescription stands in the way of using birth control in general. It may sound simple, but obtaining a prescription is actually one of the main barriers preventing many women from getting the medication that they need. It's difficult for many people to find the time and schedule and travel to a doctor's appointment, especially with the day-to-day work schedule that we are all used to. So next, I would like to address the limits of financial hardships and mental health issues that over-the-counter birth control can help avoid. So oftentimes it is just too expensive, and seeing a doctor for a woman can be pricey, and the office visits are not always free, and they can add up. So over-the-counter birth control pills can help limit those factors. And embarrassment is also a factor, and especially for young adults. It may not always be fitting to see a doctor and talk about such issues, and let alone schedule an appointment. So over-the-counter birth control pills can help address these problems. So according to Britt Wallen, he is the Vice President for Development and Public Affairs at the IBIS for Reproductive Health in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He said that an over-the-counter birth control pill is long overdue in the United States. In fact, the pill is already available for over-the-counter in more than 100 countries. So making an oral contraceptive available without prescription has the potential to increase the number of women using this method and reduce the gaps in use. So I suggest that we all look at the strong and beautiful women around us and respect their freedom in choosing to access birth control over the counter. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Malia. I do have to mention, I forgot to time you or ask for someone to be a timekeeper. So I do think you hit around the 4-minute mark. Just
I
based
forgot
off
to
of.
time myself too. I was going to time myself.
So going forward, can I ask for one volunteer who is kind of at the later end of and potentially presenting tomorrow to volunteer to be the timekeeper?
I will.
Thank you, Daphne. So you are not responsible to give feedback today. All you need to do is private message me after each speech, the timing.
Got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Malia, go ahead and if you want to.
Questions?
Feedback?
Oh, yeah. If anyone would like to give me feedback,
Do so in the chat box.
do so in the chat box.
Do you want to pass it on to anyone? Maybe we'll take 30 seconds. You all can write down your feedback, and then whoever the next person is, it looks like Carlos. Make sure, Carlos, you're on deck and ready to present.
All right.
Thanks, Malia.
Thank you. Are we doing questions, Alyssa, or just feedback?
We'll just do feedback, and then we'll have questions and open forum after everyone is presented.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for the feedback.
All right. Thank you. Carlos, go ahead.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good morning and had some breakfast and something to eat. So let's get right into this. So I'm Carlos Espinoza, and I firmly believe that psilocybin mushrooms should be legalized. So I'm sure everyone growing up has heard that drugs are bad, that they don't have no benefits to them, and that they're just always a gateway drug to something worse. So a quote from James Kent. Let me pull this up because I don't want to butcher the quote. It says, "To stimulate and activate the mind in ways that are otherwise not possible, and when we encounter these new facets of our brain, tap into the hidden powers that lie beyond the contrived and sanctioned states of awake, asleep, and intoxicated, there is a seminal rush of elation that has nothing to do with drugs, yet has everything to do with human curiosity and hunger for discovery. In the psychedelic state, our ever-curious eyes are open to new realms of possibilities and new modes of thought never dreamed possible. We are open to sorry about that. We discover that awake means much more than simply moving around with our eyes open, and reality pops out at us in a way that was previously unimaginable. Yes, there is an entire entire rainbow of discrete, fascinating, horrific, beautiful, and unimaginably strange mind states out there just waiting to be explored. And like it or not, the long road to exploring these states starts with drugs. So psilocybin mushrooms have shown that it can be used to treat cancer-related psychiatric distress, depression, anxiety, nicotine addiction, and substance use disorders as well. So this was a study conducted by the University of Johns Hopkins, and in 2018, they had suggested the reclassification of the drug from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 4 to allow it for medical use. A lot of experts and a lot of hospitals in general who receive, or people who come in taking mushrooms, and they have they have paranoia, they have anxiety, and they have just a bunch of hallucinations and different effects. A lot of this time it seems like really negative connotations, but a lot of the times they don't take into account how much the user had ingested before coming into the hospital in the first place. So today, the study of psychedelics and the potential application in medicine and research is still undergoing reevaluation. During 1960 and 1962, Timothy Leary, a psychologist from Harvard, had conducted unconventional experiments by giving psilocybin to prison inmates to see if it would reduce recidivism. And basically what that means is to reduce the act of reoffending after the release from prison. And so he also gave it out to students who were theology students to see if he could provoke some sort of religious experience. And so something I found really interesting was that after he took mushrooms himself, he said in those 5 hours of taking mushrooms, he felt like he learned more than he did in his entire 15 years of studying psychology. And something about that just stood out to me because it's like, what kind of mindset are you in when you're on that drug? What kind of perceptives are you open to? And just all these other things that could be happening to you while you're on this drug. And it's just very fascinating. So he eventually got dismissed from Harvard, unfortunately, and he was considered a junkie. All the time people were saying that he came out of class. He just literally gave out hallucinogens to the whole class and just would leave. And so a lot of the research he had done wasn't valid anymore. He was uncredited. He was just considered a junkie and a hippie, basically. And so there's this doctor named David Luke, a psychologist at University of Greenwich, and he said that if you're a psychologist who wants to understand the psychedelic experience, there's something to learn from taking them yourself. A lot of the early studies of psychedelics were people who had traumatic experiences were a result of lack of insight from clinicians. But this shouldn't have to ruin the whole idea of wanting to learn more about this drug and the effects that it has on people and stuff like that. As David mentioned, he had found a lot of use for guiding research into this topic, you know. So a lady from the name of Janet L. Chang discovered mushrooms through reading into health, mindfulness, personal growth, and she first initially found out about, like, you know, all these trips and stuff like that through a trip that she took to Africa and took ayahuasca for the first time. And she felt like she had gained a new like perspective in life and like just felt better overall, like more self-aware. And so she went back home, started studying or looking into other drugs like that, and she really was keen on mushrooms. So she had, mind you, she had previously never done anything with drugs. She was like straight edge. She just was really focused on her health, mental health, and just like, you know, her body and stuff like that. So I found it really interesting that she mentioned that one day she woke up, and when she first started microdosing, and she had no fear of public speaking. Like, she had mentioned that she was usually like very social anxiety and like struggled with just talking to people and stuff like that, but she had no issue with that. She mentioned she had reduced stress, reduced social anxiety, and being able to address things she couldn't before. Like, I'm sure all of us have had like things that happened to us, and like we just either dug down in the grave, moved on, forgot about it, you know, and don't want to retouch that surface. But she found herself being able to like go back to those things, um, accept them, like, you know, just being able to take it all in without having to just push it to the side and forget about it. And so it had its drawbacks as she was microdosing and trying out different levels. She did sometimes find herself in with more anxiety, more stress, not being able to focus on simple tasks. But I think taking this into account, she was also like taking different amounts of mushrooms. So when microdosing, obviously with higher doses, you're gonna be feeling the effect a lot more. So she was trying to find out what effect didn't have anything to do with her work production, but more so as in just her the benefit of her mood and how she feels and how she goes about on her day. And so, all in all, I think the studies revolving around psilocybin mushrooms and the effects it has on the mind and health of a person are still undergoing and are only finding more benefits by the tests ran on subjects. It can not only help people who have extreme anxiety, stress, and even help us have a better understanding of ourselves and other people around us. Thank you. So, if anybody has some feedback, please leave it in the comments or the chat box below. Thank you. And I'll pass it on to Janeth.
Good morning, all. I hope all of us are doing well this morning.
And if you just want to wait maybe 1 minute, and then everyone can write Carlos some feedback.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks. Hi, Caesar, welcome. We're doing chat box feedback today, so if you'd like to join in on that, we're gonna have Janeth present now. And so, Janeth, take it away.
Thank you, Alyssa. So good morning, all. Once again, I hope everyone is doing well. Have you ever wondered where creatures lived among us during ancient times? I am talking about the one that represents immortality, the one who burns up into flames until it dies and is reborn within the ashes. Can anyone guess what creature I'm talking about?
Phoenix.
Yes, you guessed it. I'm talking about the phoenix. I am Janeth Ramirez, and I firmly believe that the phoenix existed long ago. As far as history can show, the oldest version of a phoenix is the Egyptian Benebird. I will be sharing with you how they came to be and what they represented throughout history. In Egyptian mythology, they believed that the universe began with the cry from a Benebird. Due to Egyptian mythology and their beliefs in immortality, it would only make sense for them to believe this. Let's not forget that Egyptians believed in preserving the body for our next life. They use mummification and rituals to do this. The phoenix symbolizes exactly that, immortality and self-creation. Their beliefs are what led the Egyptians to make this bird a god. The Benabird was the first version of a phoenix. Both are birds of the sun, both are self-created, rather than being born from other creatures. And both undergo death and become symbols of regeneration and rebirth. How can an animal be born within the ashes, you may ask? Well, this is because of asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction involves one parent, usually a female. A parent then produces offspring that is generally identical to each other and to the parent. A realistic explanation, right? However, phoenixes were considered to be male. Asexual reproduction usually happens from a female. Could that mean that phoenixes were female and not male? Or could it be that males could reproduce during those times? I believe that they were female, but they were just not identified at the time. And since males back in history were more dominant, that's why they were perceived as male and not female. A lot of people believe in dinosaurs without having seen them, but the proof is there. The same goes for these creatures. During 96 AD, popes like San Clemente believed and viewed the phoenix as a symbol of resurrection. Just like the phoenix, Jesus Christ was reborn within 3 days later from being killed. Christians converted an analogy to represent Jesus Christ's death. The phoenix comes up in works of literature, including the Bible. Job states, I shall multiply my days as whole, the phoenix, 29:18. The phoenix immortality symbol brought many hunters. One of the Roman emperors wanted to eat a phoenix to become immortal. He sent his servants looking for it day and night. To prevent coming back empty-handed, they brought him the body of a bird from paradise. This bird did not provide immortality. And 2 years later, the emperor died. Overall, while it may be challenging to prove that the phoenix did live among us during ancient times, the evidence also makes it impossible to disprove this evidence. Next time you see an eagle, just remember that they come from the phoenix. Thank you all. Any feedback, if you can please leave it in the chat.
All right.
Miguel, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Janeth. Great presentation. Can y'all hear me fine? Yeah, okay, great. I want to make sure my mic doesn't like go hella loud, like how y'all claim it does. Okay. So, good morning, y'all. My name is Miguel Barrera, and the topic I will be presenting and discussing about today is why I believe protesting shelter in place is doing more harm than good. Now, before I begin, I have a question for y'all. My question is, if y'all were given the chance to reopen the United States, would you? So just go ahead and think about that while I keep talking. So let me start off by saying that COVID-19, aka the coronavirus, is a newfound virus that is also a global pandemic, making countries all over the world shut down and essentially placing shelter in place in hopes of either creating a vaccine or have nobody affected at all and for it to just somewhat go away, right? So what we know now is that the spread of the virus could be airborne. When people sneeze or cough, it is more likely to be spread when people are in close contact with one another. In other words, if you are going out, you are putting yourself at risk and everybody else around you at risk as well. And protesting, which are typically large or rallies with large gatherings of people, are especially detrimental to the whole point of keeping 6 feet distance apart from one another, and it's putting all of those people at risk of contracting the virus. Something important to note is that everybody has different symptoms of showcasing this virus. Some people don't show the symptoms of being infected immediately, and sometimes it just takes time. Nonetheless, you could be walking around feeling perfectly healthy, fine, and there could be just a little small chance that you might be infected. Now, I understand that the chance of one of us being affected is small, but if mandated shelter in place is being forced on us, then that means that this virus can cause real serious harm. And according to CDC.gov, in the United States alone, there are over 1 million cases and over 90,000 deaths. Due to these rising numbers, shelter in place has been implemented, meaning you are not to go out unless it is for an essential service, meaning it must be to get groceries or medication. One way or another, this has affected all of us and people we know. We are not able to go to class, and we've been going virtual for like more than 10 weeks. I have family members that have essential jobs, and they put themselves at risk just to make ends meet at my house. But that is a reality we all must face, and things are being extended as time passes on. Y'all remember the original date? They said we would come back to the site. It was supposed to be for like a month, right? But that didn't end up happening because more and more people are being infected. For those that might be saying or thinking to themselves, the flu kills more. Let me put some perspective into you. This virus, which has been around for just a couple months and it's worldwide, there have been over 4 million cases and over 300,000 deaths. Here's another thing y'all have to think about too. The United States holds about 4.25% of the world's population, but we hold nearly 30% of the world's confirmed COVID-19 cases and more than 25% of the total worldwide deaths, which to me says a lot about how we've been handling this situation. Anyways, we're all being affected in one way or another. There are people who must resort to receiving resources, and we as people should be more compassionate and understandable about those that are at a disadvantage because of their legal status. Now, I will begin protesting shelter in place. There have been protests in LA, SF, Sacramento, and just more cities across all over America. On May 1st, over 3,000 people gathered in Huntington Beach out in Orange County, demanding that beaches should reopen. I'm pretty sure y'all saw this on the news or on your Twitter. Anyways, other participants were also protesting, claiming that this virus is fake, possibly out of fear of the unknown, which might make civilians feel oppressed. According to CDC.gov, through the span of those 2 weeks from when that rally was held in Orange County, there were 1,434 confirmed new cases. Now, I can't say that the people at the rally are responsible, but I will say that if you catch this virus, you are ordered to stay home just to get better. And guess who are the next people you will infect? Your family, the people who might be working out just to be able to put food on the table. In my opinion, I believe leadership was missing when this started, and it is not being shown properly at this current time. Now, what do I think should be done now? We need stronger leadership to ensure rules are being implemented equally, and we need to all cultivate a mindset that being at home, spending quality time with family will be for the greater good. Through this, we can achieve a more positive day-to-day basis of less people being infected. And the more educated we are about this topic, the likelier outcome we can have of going back to our original lifestyle. And I say stronger leadership because there have been reports of people purposely assaulting other civilians by coughing on them and scaring them afterwards by saying they have the coronavirus. Otherwise, I encourage y'all to stay home. Please be safe, keep your family safe and in your prayers while natural selection takes its course. Thank you. Questions or feedback? I'm so sorry. I got caught up in the moment and I forgot who's after me. So whoever's after me, please take the stand.
Valerie.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm a little sick, so I sound funny. So to start off my speech, how many of us here have dogs? How many of us here have pit bulls? How many of us here have considered adopting a pit bull but have been discouraged due to their reputation? So today I'm going to try to convince you all to adopt pit bulls. To give you a little bit of background on pit bulls, there's 3 types of pit bulls. There's the American Pit Bull Terrier, the American Staffordshire Terrier, and the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Throughout the late 19th century and early 20th century, the Staffordshire Bull Terrier was considered to be the nanny dog due to their delicacy, devotion, and love for children. Parents all over the United States and England wanted pit bull to look after and accompany their children. To give you a little bit of background on pit bulls, as their reputation changed throughout the course, now less than a century later, pit bulls are the most feared dogs in the world because they are perceived as vicious and impulsive fighting dogs. Being considered the ultimate fighting dogs, pit bulls are looked down upon by society now. What we often fail to take into consideration when we make these assumptions is the background the pit bull has been in, the environment they are brought up in, and the circumstances that led them to this personality. Many pit bulls are emotionally and physically scarred because they have been chained up outside, often without adequate food or water, to be used as cheap burglar alarms. A famous pit bull advocate and researcher, Straw That, also said, "We're seeing a disturbing new trend, a nationwide trend. Members of street gangs are using pit bulls as status symbols and as weapons." As you can see here, pit bulls are no longer seen as dogs, as pets or animals. They are seen as a weapon. The notorious association they have with this lifestyle is ruining their reputation, and sadly this is something they have no control over because they cannot control who their owner is. And I strongly believe that pit bulls are a product of the environment and of the hands they are being handled by. They often live in undesirable conditions and receive little to no human interaction and little to no love or compassion from their owners. To give you a little bit of background of the population of pit bulls in shelters, each year 12 million dogs are euthanized, approximately 40% of whom are pit bulls. This means that nearly 1 million pit bulls type dogs are killed in shelters annually. Now just let that number sink in. Nearly 500,000 a year. That amount of deaths of pit bulls is already bizarre. It is saddening when pit bulls end up in shelters because odds are they will never see another day outside those 4 walls. There are 2 main reasons behind the amount of pit bulls in shelters. 1 being the overpopulation, and 2 being the breed-specific legislation and pit bull prejudice. People, when they tend to go into shelters and consider adopting a pit bull, they are discouraged because when they look into it, they realize that the apartments they live in or the house they may be renting, they do not allow pit bull breeds to live there. Also, possible adopters may learn that they have too many questions on the background of the dog, like if they have aggression or tend to have a short temper. There is just too many questions surrounding the pit bulls in shelters. So they move away from adopting the pit bulls and look into a more safer and acceptable dog breed when they do look into it. To give you some background of my personal experience with pit bulls, I've had 2 pit bulls. They've all grown up with people of all ages, from young toddlers to older people like my grandparents. They are in a very loving home. They are in a secure home, and they all are very loving dogs. They think they're giant babies. They sit on our laps and they kiss our faces all day. Also, my cousin, he breeds pit bulls, and while I do not condone breeding, sometimes at a time he has up to 15 pit bulls in his house, and he has 3 young children, his oldest daughter being 5 years old. All his children have grown up with pit bulls of all ages, from puppies to adults, and they have never lashed out on any of the kids. We always come over there too, and we have family gatherings, and they're all there, and they have never lashed out at anybody. So to conclude my speech, some people are considering fostering pit bulls, but while this is a great opportunity to expand the odds of them getting adopted, I encourage everyone who is capable and is in a living home where they are allowed to have pit bulls to adopt. This way, pit bulls will not be in a constant state of doubt, and they won't risk ending back in a shelter and euthanized within a couple of days. Thank you. And you can leave me feedback in the chat. Thank you. And B's next.
I just give a couple minutes for people to write. All right. Hi, everyone. Valerie, you did great. So as of 2019, more than 61% of the American population say that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. I'm Beatrice, and I am part of the 61%. I firmly believe that abortion should be legal. The woman is the one who goes through the effects of pregnancy and labor, so they should be the ones to decide what they want to do with their body. Do you know what happens to a woman in just her first trimester? Overwhelming hormonal changes, morning sickness, and her internal organs being arranged are just to name a few. And if that isn't bad enough, a lot of the times women get impregnated from rape cases. Put yourself in a woman's shoes and imagine being raped and having to carry your rapist child. The mental and physical tolls that it would take on your body should not be forced on anyone. And women should be allowed to dictate what they want their body, mental health, and emotions to go through during the span of the next 9 months. My next point on why abortion should be legal is that the foster care system is overcrowded and therefore not able to provide the standards that it should be held up to. According to childrensrights.org, there are over 500,000 kids in the foster care system at any given time. In 2018 alone, over 690,000 children spent time in foster care. Let that sink in. That's over 500,000. About 135,000 children are adopted per year, and only 59% of those numbers come from our welfare system. That equals to less than 80,000 children. There are simply not enough workers or space to properly care for those in the foster care system. If abortion was legal, there would be fewer kids put up for adoption and placed in the system. That means better treatment for those that do end up in foster care because of the decrease in numbers. My last point on why abortion should be legal is that some people are not ready or fit to have kids. Some people simply don't have the money needed to raise a child properly. Think back to a time where you've seen a parent with their child begging on the street. How does that make you feel? Unfortunately, some parents are forced into the street because they can't afford to raise a child, but also couldn't have an abortion. Some people are also not mentally fit to have kids. Gabriel Fernandez was an 8-year-old boy who was repeatedly abused and tortured to death by his own mother and her boyfriend. Because of the overwhelming cases of child abuse, the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services overlooks so many cases like Gabriel Fernandez's. How many more kids have to die before we fully recognize that there are just too many child abuse cases because of their parents? Their parents don't want the kids in the first place. There's a lot of stories about children who are abused by parents who aren't ready or fit, and no child should ever have to be placed in that situation. If abortion was legal, there would be less cases of child abuse and also less people who would exploit their kids in order to gain welfare benefits. If we made abortion legal, so many kids would not be faced with an adequate level of foster care, overwhelming numbers of abuse cases, and there'd be more quality of life for those that are put into the system. So make abortion legal. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Any comments is welcome in the chat box below. And I'm going to pass it off to Ricardo.
Thank you. I will take a second for everyone to give their feedback while I get something. All right. Hello, friends. Have you ever gazed up at the night sky and wondered the possibilities of life on other planets? What marvelous beings exist out there, extending their hands in friendship, awaiting the moment when we humans take our first tentative steps into space? What tales will be told on that glorious day when we are first contacted by our brethren from beyond the stars? Hi, I'm Ricardo Flores, and I am someone who not only believes that alien exists, but they may inhabit our very own galaxy. Today, I will give you insight into the idea of life among the stars, the number of habitable planets that exist within our very own solar system alone, and the type of people who believe that the possibility of meeting life on other planets is possible. The universe is a very big place, almost infinite perhaps. It is outrageous to believe that we are the only living beings that live here, that inhabit it. NASA sent a telescope into space to try to find different planets in our solar system that could possibly be habitable. That telescope found around 30 planets that are almost exactly like Earth and could possibly house life within them. A lot of these planets have aspects that would make it uninhabitable for life as we know it. But the thing about alien life is it can come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. We don't know what these creatures would look like or what they could have adapted to and what kind of environments they could possibly live in. Big names in the scientific community believe that aliens could possibly exist. Neil deGrasse Tyson has once referenced the Drake equation, which is the equation for figuring out the possibility of how many life forms could exist within our very own solar system. This estimation calculated there to be between 100 and 200 civilizations in the Milky Way alone. Albert Einstein has claimed, why should Earth be the only planet that supports life? And Stephen Hawking has also claimed that we may receive a message from alien life forms at some point during the human lifetime. But we should be wary of this message, and compares it to the Native Americans encountering Columbus for the first time and the difference in between their technology and what eventually happened. Now, these scientists also claim that the chances of making contact with these beings is extremely low, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. Just because we won't meet them doesn't mean they're not out there. To not believe aliens or other life on different planets is very close-minded and, to be fair, boring. Aliens have had a permanent spot in pop culture for the longest time. Science fiction is a genre mainstay, and everyone has seen a science fiction movie at least once in their life. The unknown just has this way of fueling our imaginations with the could-bes and what-ifs that surround us. The universe is possibly infinite, and while we may not know if we'll meet them in our lifetime, life is out there. I will end with this quote from science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke. Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in this universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. Thank you very much. If you have any feedback, please leave it in the chat. And next is Tamara.
It's me, Jessica, actually. Tamara's not here. Okay. Okay. I guess I'll begin right now.
Jessica, do you want to wait just one more? I only see one feedback so far, so it seems people might still be typing. Maybe 30 more seconds. Just to maintain the order, we'll have Kayla go 10th today, and then we'll stop after Kayla. All right, go ahead, Jessica.
One of the memories that you don't want when you start kindergarten and still learning how to speak English is having to explain what cinto is. Cinto, by the way, is belt in Spanish. This is what happened to me when my teacher noticed marks on my back. I'm Jessica Gonzalez, and I firmly believe that physical discipline causes more harm than good. I lived through a household where physical discipline was the best way to make you behave. It gave me hatred towards my own mother and made me grow up being a rebel and never wanting kids because I didn't want to end up like her. Hitting a child doesn't teach them wrong or right. Responsibility, conscience development, and self-control. Some parents believe that spanking is a parental right and obligation needed to turn out an obedient child. Elizabeth Gershoff, PhD, an expert on the effects of corporal punishment on children, provide research for the resolution said, spanking gets their attention, but they have not internalized what they should be doing right in the future. They may behave when the adult is there, but do whatever they want at other times. In addition, children learn from watching their parents. Parents who use physical discipline may be teaching their children to resolve conflict with physical aggression. Research found that spanking can evaluate a child's aggression level as well as diminish the quality of the parent-child relationship. Other studies have documented that physical discipline can escalate into abuse. Physical punishment is associated with range of mental health problems in children, youth, and adults, including depression, unhappiness, anxiety, feeling of hopelessness, use of drugs and alcohol, and general psychological um, judge, judgment. Physical discipline creates a shocking circumstance for the children, which helps them to remember that their choices could create harms in some ways. Personally, with me, I honestly turned out to be a really bad kid. I do have, I started drinking alcohol at the age 15. I started smoking at the age 15. I just became like a really bad kid. Like I was acting out. And I mean, till this day, like I learned from my mistakes, but too, I feel like it had to do a lot with how my mom raised me. I forgave her. We have a better relationship and all. But it's something I do not want to pass on. When you're a child, do you look up to your parents? So what you see, you imitate. Hitting is demonstrating that hitting a person is acceptable because you're trying to teach them a lesson. Hitting would then be your way of solving any problem or issue. Many people who grew up in a household with physical discipline, such as my husband, says that discipline worked for them and will apply those teaching on their own children, which I disagree. A survey of 679 college students showed that those who recall being spanked as children accepted spanking as a way of discipline and intended to spank their own children. Students who were not spanked as children were significantly less accepting of the practice than those who were spanked. The spanked students also reported remembering that their parents were angry during the spanking. They remember both the spanking and the attitude with which it was administered. More than 1 out of 4 parents who had grown up in a violent home were violent enough to risk serious seriously injuring their child. Adults who received a lot of physical punishment as teenagers had a rate of spouse beating that was 4 times greater than those whose parents did not hit them. There are alternatives to how you can discipline your child, and physically is not the way. We have control on what we can change from our past to create a better future for ourselves and for our current or future children. And that's my presentation. Thank you. Any feedback or questions? Could you leave in the chat box? And next would be Alex.
All right, we're gonna give that a minute. Wait for your responses in the chat box, and then I'll start. All right, everybody. My name is Alex Flores, and I'm here to talk about why tattoos should not be frowned upon around the work environment. So, out of all my time working in a work field, either in an office or at a fast food restaurant, 90% of the time, who's the first person that you notice that has tattoos? For me, it's always my managers, and I always look at them, and it's always funny to see how someone can be at a high such upper level than you and still manage to look professionally, act professionally, and be your boss. So the times that I worked at Pizza Hut, I've always asked my manager, my area coach, what how she got, like, how her tattoos has her tattoos ever affected her and either getting a job or either working anywhere else. And she told me this that always sticks in my head. It's not the way that you it's not what you have on your body, it's the way that you carry yourself and the way that you present yourself. So that really got to me when I was working because I really never thought about it that way. um I don't know if many of y'all ever walked down to the grocery store, around the office, wherever you work at, and it's always like older people or someone else that looks at you a funny way just because of what you have on your body. And for that reason, that stuck to me in my head because a lot of people judge nowadays. They don't really tend to go from how you present yourself and what you look like. They tend to judge you for what you look like. So so for me nowadays, tattoos have become a new norm, and it's just really, I can say, I guess it's really just a new trend that's come to play. And then a lot of people don't understand that we don't, well, for me myself, we don't get our tattoos just because we want them and just because they look nice. For some of us, they represent our culture and they represent our lives. I walk around with my tattoos and I represent my culture and I represent my life on my arm. And that keeps me going every day. I always tend to look at it, even when things get rough and when things don't really go my way. I always look at my tattoos and think to myself, what's my next move and what's my next execution move to keep going with my journey. And a lot of people don't really understand that tattoos really come into play with not just who you are, but they really tend to like motivate you in a different way. They 90% of the time that I've gone that I'm sorry about that, that people that I've talked to, people that had tattoos, tell me that they tend to get them just because either they like how they look or that it's because they just wanted one. But then the other 10% tell me that it's just because it's either their culture or it's something that represents them. My little sister, my little sister, my cousin attempted to work at In and Out once, and they told her that she was not able to work at In and Out because she had her grandma's funeral date on her left arm. And to be honest with you, I don't even think that's right in a work, like at a workplace, that they judge you just because you have a tattoo. Um, a lot of the time, I wouldn't want to be stripped away from my culture or from what I represent myself. So if someone tells me that that there's a problem with the tattoo that I have or anything like that, they're basically disrespecting me and my culture, and that's really not right. So a lot of the time, people don't really tend to think about it in that perspective, and 75% of people that do get tattoos, um, they tend to get them for their artwork. So a lot of people do tend to get them for their artwork, but then say like the artist told I spoke to my artist and he told me that for him this art is a living. It's not really it's not really that he's doing just to do. So he is an artist and that he likes basically expressing himself, but he enjoys more expressing other people's, I guess, life, emotion, and you can say like artwork. He'll bring your artwork to life. So in a way, why would you want any of that stripped away from you while you're trying to get a job or trying to be something or trying to get somewhere? That should never interfere with you and where you're going. So for me, I think tattoos should never be frowned upon in a work environment. So, and I wouldn't want to be stripped away from who I am and from my cultures. So, what's your guys' next tattoo? And then that's it. That's all I have for this one. Then next is Kayla. And then we'll just give it a minute in the chat box before Kayla goes. And whenever she's ready, she can start.
I don't believe Kayla is here.
Thank you for bringing that up. All right. Well, is Floor, are you available to present? I know you're on your phone. Maybe we'll wait on that one. Let's go to Fabi.
To be honest, I kind of was hoping I went tomorrow, so I'm not really prepared.
Thank you for being honest with that. I did note that everyone needed to be prepared to present on Wednesday. So I would say just share with us what you've got and just trust that you're the expert on this and it doesn't necessarily need to be as scripted or rehearsed.
Oh my God.
You
I
got
really
this.
don't want to go right now. Sorry, 1 second.
The chat box is alive with some encouragement. Just know we're on Team Fabi. You got this.
So, hello everyone. Before convincing you all to take a stand with me, I want everyone to come off mute and answer my question with an I or a yes. How many of you know someone, whether it be you, family, relatives, or friends who entered the US illegally and updated their status or are still illegal? Well, including myself, I come from a family who is 80% of them migrated from Guatemala due to poverty, crimes, and a better economic opportunity. My parents entered the US illegally back in 2002. My dad was able to obtain his visa, while my mom, on the other hand, remains as an illegal worker. My mom has been in the US for about 18 years with no legal status or opportunity to obtain citizenship. My mom has no criminal records, has no speeding tickets, pays her taxes, and has never caused any harm to society. She has earned her income with sweat and dignity. She's worked very hard to make a living here in America. However, she doesn't have the privilege some of us have. She can't receive unemployment. She can't leverage in a higher occupation, request disability, or retire with an income. She simply does not have the rights some of us have. Last but not least, she hasn't traveled outside the country in over 20 years to see her parents or my siblings. Although aware of the risk factors that came along with migrating to the USA, no challenge can prepare for emotional disconnection when leaving loved ones behind. Imagine, how would you feel not being able to see your loved ones ever again? I know for a fact I would be completely devastated. I strongly believe that we are all equal, whether it be our financial status, education status, and legal status. We are all people with human rights. I stand with giving immigrants, as some of us may call them, an opportunity to start a future family and business in the land of opportunities, America. Many people claim immigrants are taking over American jobs, but tell me, how many US citizens work in the agricultural workplace? Maids, housekeeping, cleaners, janitors, and construction occupations. Not many, um, because they are back-breaking jobs, as we may call them. Undocumented immigrants are willing to work in low-pay occupations to make a living. They are willing to take jobs others don't want. Immigrants are economic contributors. They play a crucial role in the nation's workforce. More than 44.7 million immigrants lived in the US in 2018, the historical numeric high since census records have been kept. Immigrants make about 17% of the labor force, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That is a huge population. I can see why people can think undocumented workers may take up a lot of jobs, but in the world we live in, there will always be new jobs coming out. There is an opportunity for everyone. It truly saddens me that society has preconceived ideas against undocumented people, simply because they come from different cultures, ethnicities, and speak a different language. The world assumes they are criminals they think and are ignorant. No, they are hardworking people who have graduated, who have served in the military, and are making a difference every day. But due to the fact that they have not yet gained their citizenship, people think that they are immigrants. If we look at the criminal statistics, people born in the US, Americans come in first place, beating any other race. Immigrants aren't here to kill nor rob. They are here to prosper. They are here to give their children a better future, education, and lifestyle. They are contributors to society and the future of our nation. Is it so easy to be prejudiced? Is it so easy to assume negative about undocumented people? If it is, then what kind of morals and values do we have? We are not better than anyone. If I come from immigrant parents, what makes you think you don't? Maybe not your parents, but if you were to travel back in time, what makes you think your ancestors did not come from somewhere else to make a living here in America? Immigrants make a better country today. We need diversity to grow, connect, and make America great. Thank you.
See, you did great.
Check, that was fire.
I'm a little disappointed in myself, but it's okay.
Don't be, that was great.
Don't doubt yourself, Abby. You did do great.
All right, make sure you give Fabi some feedback in the chat box. And yes, I know sometimes it's tough when you are mentally prepared to present on a different day. Life sometimes hands you different lemons. So great job, Fabi, and great job everyone who presented today. Really like the variety of the topics. So yes, if we could give everyone a round of applause. Feel free to come off mute so we can hear you clap. Yay. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now.